Hi, my name is Lucas, and I'm here today to tell you why Spanish should be taught as part of the core curriculum in every single elementary school in the United States. When I came to America, my brain was still developing its language skills. So while learning my native language, I also learned English, and my brain was able to soak it up. That's why I'm able to speak fluently in both languages like a native speaker of both countries. And that is exactly why Vinity Vayash says in his book, English Education in India, that government schools find that offering English only in secondary school is too late. Secondary schools are equivalent here in these states to high school, and that's where most people have their first encounter with learning Spanish. And most people do the requirements to graduate and forget about it. And that is not going to affect the language learning of this country. And I believe that we should look to the fundamental part of language formation to be able to teach kids another language. And learning a second language is good for your cognitive abilities, your earning abilities later on in the job market, and also the ability to break down cultural borders that we hold. So the first thing, the cognitive abilities, we must dispel two very common myths. One of the myths is that children raised in a bilingual home will begin speaking later than their peers, which there is some evidence to say that that is true. However, most psychological foundations agree that children that are born and raised in a bilingual home will start speaking at a normal rate compared to their peers. And the second myth that is dispelled in John Schmidtke's article is that children that are raised in a bilingual home later on in their lives do worse in literary exams. And that is true to an extent. However, one thing that we must also remember is that a lot of people that are raised in bilingual homes in the United States are raised under the poverty line. And that is likely indicating that they will go to a underfunded school, which is what is the main contributing factor to their inability to do as well as other people in a literary exam. And if you compare the other people in those schools that are also raised in just English-speaking homes, they'll likely do just as bad as those other speakers. And one thing that we also must know is that those bilingual speakers are not representative of the whole group. One thing that we find out when you research this topic, as it is stated in Esther de Jong's article, How Can We Support Kids in Learning More Than One Language, is that young bilinguals are known to be more flexible thinkers and better problem solvers. And that is indicated by the research done in Ellen Bialystai's article, The Bilingual Adaptation, that 5-year-old bilingual students of English and Korean outperform Korean and American children in literary exams, both in accuracy and in speed. So, when you take that into consideration, you might notice that there's a pattern. Bilingual students actually do better than a lot of people expect, and they actually do better than their competition and their peers because our brain is literally opening up to a different sort of level. It's like learning the language of music. It has been known for many years now that children who learn to play musical instruments tend to do better in school than their peers. And that is because your brain is literally learning a completely new task. It's opening up new avenues. Your brain is like a sponge, and it soaks up all of that information, and it continues to soak up more and more and more. And the more it soaks up, the more it learns to soak up. And that is one of the main reasons why we should teach children a new language early on. It's because their brain expands along with that language. And secondly, they also tend to earn more money than their peers later on in life. America is an increasingly multicultural country, and there's a lot of Spanish speakers, about 50 million Spanish speakers in America. And a lot of jobs nowadays prefer or even require their employees to speak Spanish. And that is because so many people here in America speak it. And those companies don't want to miss out on those sort of opportunities. In Michael Doyle's book, Business Spanish in the United States, The importance of Spanish for trade and commerce is indisputable, he says. And that is incredibly accurate to all professions. If you want to become a nurse or a doctor, you might have patients that speak only Spanish. Imagine how much better you will be able to care for your patient and follow the Hippocratic Oath if you can speak the language that they speak. And you become a more attractive candidate. And so, for that reason, children that learn Spanish end up earning more because people who speak more languages earn more money. That's simply a fact. And lastly, in our multicultural country, we have a lot of cultural borders that are established based on not knowing the people we live near, not knowing the people that are in our community because we don't understand them. One way to break down those cultural borders is by speaking the language that they speak. And so, lastly, we say that learning a new language and educating the youth of our country to speak Spanish, the language of our neighbors, will be a very good thing for the future of our countries. More diplomacy, more opportunity for business, and more opportunity to recruit the best of the Spanish-speaking world to come to our country, feel like that they can assimilate better into our country, and do better within it. And so, in conclusion, learning a second language from an early age not only benefits our children's cognitive abilities, but it also benefits their earning abilities later on in life, and it also helps break down cultural borders and make our country a better place. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and I hope that you will call your local representatives and tell them that you want your children to learn Spanish in elementary school.